All right, let's get started. Hey everyone, this is Ben. For those who are just first tuning in, I am from South Florida, but I am currently living in Ukraine. I've been in Ukraine for almost a year now, and for the past couple of months, I've been working on making these guys. This is an FPV kamikaze drone. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what it's like making drones in Ukraine from the civilian side. In this video, I'm not going to talk about details about what specifics you're looking for a kamikaze or a ski drone. In general, this is to help provide a window view into what's going on in Ukraine from the civilian effort, what challenges we face, and how we went about making drones. So first off, how did I get started making drones in Ukraine? I came to Ukraine probably like last June, July, and I had no intentions of making drones while I was here. I was planning on probably doing more of like humanitarian, moving stuff from the west to the east to the front. But of course, everything changes in Ukraine. And eventually I started meeting people, the right people, and they had the right skills. And I kept ending up with basically the perfect situation where I should just start making drones. A little background behind me, I have no experience in electronics. I have no experience in drones. It's a whole new world to me. So that's probably been like why it's taken me a bit of time to get into this, and why I've been very hesitant about making a video about making drones in Ukraine is because I am no expert. I am an amateur. In total, I've probably made close to 30 drones so far. Most of them have been FPV drone, kamikaze drones. These guys here. This was the first one I actually made. I keep this one. I test fly this one. You can see it's definitely got some damage from some prop flying. So yeah, making drones in Ukraine, getting started. It's pretty much, it's who you know. That's if you come to Ukraine, you want to do volunteer work and you say, I want to make drones, guess what? That ain't happening. It's like going into the service industry with no service prior experience, going up to a restaurant or a high volume nightclub and saying, I want to be a bartender. That shit ain't happening. It's trust. If you want to be able to build drones in Ukraine, you need to build relationships and contacts, and you need to build the trust. The actual making of the drone is quite simple, and that's what I'm hoping to show people and introduce people about, that drones are very simple to make. And this is kind of why Ukraine has been able to produce so many drones, even on the civilian side. You don't need a large warehouse to build drones. Sure, you might be able to produce at better quantity. You know, if you have a large facility, you might be able to streamline things if you have 10 guys and each person's working on a certain bit. But in general, all you need to make drones is a clear open space, soldering rod, and that's pretty much it. And that's all really cheap. The down payment, I mean, you know, obviously there's fancier stuff, but you can get, I got myself this kit on Rosetka. I believe it was like 35 or 40 bucks. It's been a while. I'll post it up. I'll have to do the research and show you guys. I want to show you guys the prices, what it's like here in Ukraine. Because that's the other thing I want to talk about, pricing. When it comes to making drones, funding for it, how does it work? So let me go back again to how I got started. So one of my friends, his coom is a drone pilot. And recently, not too recently, when I first got started, he's told me that he wanted us to build drones for his coom so we can, you know, send it to him. And he's thought about trying to make it a business, a whole thing. And luckily for me, I know people in Kyiv that do have a drone facility there. And I asked them if they'd be interested in coming down to our city and do like a workshop with us for a weekend to teach us how to make drones. So I was in the US in February. We thought about it in January, and then once I got back to Ukraine, I started putting things in motion. So the game plan was to buy like 8 drones, have all the parts here, have the guys in Kyiv show up. I'll have like 4 or 5 guys here, and we're gonna knock out those drones. He's gonna show us from start to finish all the things we need to know. There were some hiccups along the way. Unfortunately, we had some finance issues because the original guy who was supposed to finance bailed. That was not fun. So instead, we cut back the number we made, but we still, you know, they still showed up. They showed us what to do. It was kind of funny because honestly, it's scary because, like I said, I've had no experience in electronics, soldering, and anything like that. But pretty much, it takes you 2 days to figure out how to make drones. It only took us 2 days, you know. And everything I'm saying, there's nothing secret. There's no magic. Anything I'm talking about, you can learn on YouTube in the U.S. Basically, Joshua Bardwell. If you're in the drone world, you know who that is. If you don't know who that is, and you want to get into the drone world, that's the person. Go look him up. He does a lot of really good tutorials and stuff. So pretty much, my friends came to the city. We worked on a couple drones. They showed us how to use Betaflight. Betaflight is going to be your primary software you use on computers when it comes to setting up the drones and all the small configurations and all that. But I guess actually, you know what? I'm going to have to cut this because I'm short on time. I made a video earlier and it ended up being like 40 minutes because I went too much into details and I don't want to go into that. I'm trying to keep this under 20 minutes. So yeah, so that's how I got started. And I knew the big issue was going to be cost, in the sense of, if for me to get better at making drones, I need to build more drones. But to build more drones, you need to finance them. And like I said, the guy who was supposed to finance it, that dried up. Luckily, during that time, I've also known some other people, and they knew some people, and I got a very chance opportunity to help out at a Ukrainian, drone facility. It wasn't like a company, it was a volunteer, one of those hidden drone facilities. So I spent probably like a month and a half working with them. They are a great source of knowledge, and I got to learn a lot, and I got to improve my skills a lot. And I still, I still talk to them, and they help me out when I have problems. And that goes into, probably if you've never seen me before, if you actually don't know me, you're probably coming from Big Mac's Battle Log. And one of the drones he has, I built for him. We've been in communication for a while. I was working at a forge. We made some staples, these guys, and some burners for him and his unit, and then we've been in contact since. And I told him I was making drones, and a couple weeks ago he reached out to me and asked me if I could make him a drone. So I decided to say yes, and I went about making him a ski drone. So I'm going to use some Ukrainian words. To me, it's easier. Ski means drop. Skidity, I think it's skidity is a base form, but ski drone, it's a really good word to know in Ukrainian. They use it for like if you drop me an email, drop me a text. So a ski drone, we've all seen videos of a drone that kind of loiters in position, the camera looks down, it drops a bomb. That's very different from a kamikaze. These guys, you really don't need much else to make this work. You can get almost everything you need on the market. But to make a ski drone, you're going to need servos, you're going to need 3D parts. And that was new for me. And so it was a bit of a learning experience, and that's also why I'm making this video, is to share the learning process, going about learning how to improve your skill and learn learn how to make new things. So, making a ski drone for Mac. The principles of making it, it needed, of course, two main things. It needed a camera that can swivel. On most FPV drones, you just screw it in, it's hard in. You kind of usually try to have a 20-degree tilt upwards when you're flying. And then you're also going to need the bomb carrier, the bomb loader. I've gone online, I've looked on stores online to buy parts for bomb carriers. You can get these on stores, but guess what? This is crap. This is utter crap. And pilots say it's crap. I was hoping maybe it would have worked, because originally this was my biggest mess up during this project. Was I asked for a part, the main component to hold the bomb, and I asked for a certain frame. So there's like two main frames. There's, let's see if I can remember. There's the Mark IV frame, and then there is, oh my gosh, I cannot remember. It's this guy's frame. Apex, that's it, Apex, the Apex frame. There's Apex and Mark IV frames. And obviously the frames are different. And so I accidentally got a bomb dropper for a Apex frame and not a Mark frame. And I could have jerry-rigged it, but the last thing I wanted to do for the first item I sent Mac was to jerry-rig it and look like shit. So I decided not to do that. So I went and bought those guys, but those guys are utter crap. So that's an interesting thing, going about getting parts for that. Basically, and again, in Ukraine, it's who you know. There are organizations in Ukraine that make skied compartments without cost on their components. I don't have it with me because I sent it with Mac, but they make special components for skied drones, and it's not for sale. You cannot buy it on the market. You just need to be in contact with that organization, and they need to trust that you're not going to sell that drone for profit. Luckily, I know some people, they were able to procure me one. I have not been in direct contact with those guys that do it. I'm trying to get in direct contact with them, but again, it's language barriers here can be an issue, especially if you're not in like Lviv or Kyiv. But that's something I'm working on. So making the drone itself, the parts, we have the skid parts, the servo part, and of course the 3D parts. You're going to need to know how to make 3D parts, or you need to know someone who makes 3D parts. And this has kind of been what I've been working on now lately. I decided that I wanted to be able to make everything in-house. It's other people are really good at this, but honestly, you don't need to be like a pro. And I think that's always the big thing I've come away with my time in Ukraine. In the US, we're hyper specialized. We believe in like hyper specialization, that you shouldn't touch it, you shouldn't do anything if you don't know about it. I think that we're trying to kind of readjust to that, because think of like in the US, like handyman and stuff. Sorry, this is a tangent, but like how expensive handymen are. You know, in Ukraine, man, everyone's a handyman. You know, everyone knows something about something. So it kind of gives you the confidence to tackle these sort of things. But originally I did go to Lviv to pick up my 3D printer. I got a Prusa. It's from Czech. It's high quality. It's really good. So I've been using that. And I got in contact with some people in Lviv who do make 3D parts, but the parts they gave me were not up to snuff. They broke. So I had to reopen Blender. In my early 20s, I was like making video games and stuff, never successfully, but I dabbled in Blender, so I understood how to use Blender. So I loaded up Blender again. I made some modifications. Originally, this guy was just like this, and you know, this, and it was really, I had to add this extra bracket in here for support, add this little bit to add more stabilization, so I had a better connection with the base here. But yeah, I'm learning. This is all still learning. This is I didn't send this to Mac. This is like V2. I've sent him like V3, and now I'm working on V4. But that's the fun part, is kind of learning and then kind of improving, and it's really crazy in that sense. But yeah, back to the main point, making a skied drone. The issues. So 3D parts. You have to print out a lot of stuff. You're going to make bad ones. You're going to have to print out more stuff, and especially in Ukraine, the problem right now is power outages. Every 2 hours right now, I lose power. I have like an hour and 7 minutes left before I'm going to lose power for another 2 hours. That really like handicapped me sometimes when it came to building this drone. It's and I can imagine, like, we don't really think about it in the West, like power outages, like, oh yeah, the power's out, that sucks, you can't watch TV, you can't charge your phone. But think of like industry, like business wise, you're going to need a generator. That generator is going to eat up money. It is an issue. So I now have my 3D printer hooked up to my battery. I had a battery in my van I use with, you know, solar panels and all that. So I took that out of the van, I put that up there now so I can run it, my 3D printer, as long as I need to run it. So that's one of the issues when it comes to making stuff here in Ukraine. When it came to making the ski drone, so we had the 3D parts, we had the drop part, and the drop part, that's the next time I'm working on making an in-house one. But the other part is motors, servos actually, these guys, micro servos. Yet again, I was very, you know, no experience, had no idea what this guy was, but you're going to need to know how to use these guys if you want to make more advanced drones for Ukrainians. How do you go about making them? That was a fun part. This was my biggest obstacle. This is what made me drink. Everything else, making the drone, was no problem. I learned, obviously there's some hiccups and small things, but this guy took me like 5 to 6 hours to figure out how to jerry rig it, because if you see it, this is an MG90S. On paperwork, when I read the paperwork, it should have a range of motion of 180, which, in case, if we're talking about a drone that's a loiter drone, if you think about it, the two positions it needs to be able to go to is look straight down to drop, and then it needs to look up to fly. And so you're probably talking about here, so 120. It needs 120 degrees. You're going to be able to rotate that camera 120. So on paper, you know, this servo should work. This servo should just be fine, you know. It goes 90 negative, 90 plus. Great, fantastic. Actually, that is not true. That is far from true, especially if you are using a radio controller. These guys. So if you're flying drones, Basically, these are aux channels, all these little buttons all over the place. These are like, they send signals, frequencies, and the range is basically 1,000 to 2,000. So, sorry, it's going to be a little technical, but basically, you know, you can have it programmed in the system where, let's say this is 1,000. This right here is 1,000. Sender is 1,500, or, you know, 1,500, and this is 2,000. And so you can program inside the whole thing to figure out what's what. These servos, they run their own thing. They have their own frequency. I had to learn all about this sort of stuff. Their frequency is from 700 to like, I don't know, 230. So if you can guess, the problem is that guy only has a frequency from 1,000 to 2,000, but this guy operates from a frequency of like 7,000 to like 2,300. So, and Betaflight does not support outside of those ranges. So basically you are limited to 90 degrees with this guy. And if you're flying, making a ski drone, you know, if you're looking straight down, maybe 90 that way, maybe like if you're flying, if you know anything about flying drones, drones never fly like this, right? That's, you know, they fly like this, you know, they're being pushed forward. That's how it works. So if you're flying at a 90 degrees, guess what? You're staring at the ground. That's no good. You're definitely harder time to navigate and move to the correct position. So I had to figure out how to jerry rig this, and basically what I ended up doing was removing the harmonizer. So it's constantly, it doesn't work pretty. I don't like how it works. I'm honestly working on a new version. I have some ideas. I've watched some videos. I have to use resistors. Thank you if you're going to write in the comments which resistors. That's what I'm playing with right now. Later today I got to go pick up some more ELRSs. But yeah, so that's been that was the big challenge. So it can't function, and that's why I had to redesign this guy, because I needed something to stop it from going completely inside. That's a bunch of really small detail stuff, but that's kind of the fun part, honestly. I've actually quite enjoyed this part. I've never seen myself as like an engineer, technical sort of guy. I always like building stuff. Well, of course, to me, to build was more of like, I don't know, like I thought of like, you know, groups, that sort of building, not like actual building hardware or like, you know, social construction building, you know, starting organizations, doing that sort of building. Not like physically building, getting out measurements, doing all this stuff. So it's been new to me. So yeah, that was me building Max Drone. It took me about 3 weeks. And that goes into the next part I want to talk about, is procurement. Procuring stuff inside Ukraine. A lot of people, if you've never been to Ukraine, you don't really understand how it works here, because we see horrible stuff happening in Kharkiv, Kherson, you know, even Kyiv, Odessa, they get bombed. So we think, you know, how do people live? Honestly, life in Ukraine is quite, if you're living in Western Ukraine, even if you're living on East, guess what? People just live normal life still. People somehow try to make it normal. It's both nice and both horrifying, how things can be normalized. So logistics here in Ukraine, Ukraine doesn't have Amazon. You can't use Amazon, but there are kind of similar copycat. I wouldn't call them copycats, but you know, there's websites online that have vendors which you can order parts from, and they will deliver them to you. And you can pretty much get whatever you need. The only thing I have problems finding is shoes that fit me in Ukraine. That's been the only problem I've had in Ukraine, is finding shoes that fit me. But finding technical stuff, technical parts, all that, you can find anything, and the prices are quite good. Obviously, AliExpress, I know some people, they talk about AliExpress. When I talk to my guys, the ones who taught me, they said, oh yeah, you can buy your stuff on AliExpress, but guess what? If you buy shit on AliExpress, guess how long you have to wait? You have to wait at least a month, because it's being shipped directly from China, and then you better hope that there are no problems with that. So maybe if you're ordering in bulk, like if I had like 500,000 or like $50,000 and I was making orders, yeah, I would probably use AliExpress to buy certain parts in bulk. But if you're just making a drone, you have a request like Mac had, like, hey, I need this drone. You might be paying like a 2%, 3% increase on price compared to AliExpress. So it's quite normal. And then the websites that you would use if you're interested in understanding, it would be Rosetka and Prom. Prom is where I usually get most of my hardware, like the hardware components, like the ELRS, the flight controls, the cameras, the propellers, all that stuff I can get on Prom for a very reasonable price. I got Mac's camera. Mac wanted a thermal camera, analog thermal camera. I got that on prom, and that was $300, and that seemed pretty normal for what it was going for. I could have probably got it from AliExpress for like $250 or maybe a little less, but yet again, I have to wait a month for it. So yeah, prom, you get your hardware stuff. Rosetta, like I said, Rosetta is where I got my first starter kit for soldering. You get a lot of good stuff on Rosetta for like smaller stuff. You know, like wires, bolts, all that small stuff you really don't think about. Rosetta is good for that. And then recently I got these guys on Skydome. I think it's Skydome. I forget the name. But for this website, you actually need to be a resident of Ukraine to access it. You need a Ukrainian bank account to be able to use this stuff. So that was all interesting, figuring out what vendors to use, where to get stuff. And making Mac's drone was surprisingly cheap. I know some people think, you know, making like these sort of drones would be really expensive, but that's kind of the other scary thing is that the most expensive parts on drone is honestly going to be like the motors, the batteries, and maybe the camera. Depends what the thing's doing. If you're building a kamikaze, you don't need a good camera. You can get, I think it's called, oh my God, dash cam. No, run cam. You get a run cam for like $20. You get a run cam for $20. You can get a VTX. Like all the chips and all that, that might cost you $100 altogether, and I'm including the VTX, the antenna type stuff, and then the frames like $15. The propellers, you know, it's a lot of those things are quite negligible. They're like $5, $10 here or there, but it's going to be the battery. The batteries are going to be expensive, especially so you know, bigger battery, the farther you can go. But with the issue of that is you need bigger propeller, you need a bigger motor. And that was a big thing too. I was surprised because originally Mac wanted a big bomb. You want to be able to drop big bombs. So I tried to find him a big motor, EOS motor stuff. But Brother Hobby is like a really big company. They have really good quality control. But their price is ridiculous. I think to buy it like a 31020, it was like $80 a motor. So you need 4 motors to fly a quadcopter, of course. So, but I was able to find, you know, I think the brand was called Tornado. I was able to use that brand, and it was $80 total. So yeah, 4 for 1 pretty much. And hopefully it works well. I mean, I tested it. It seems to be working just fine. But yeah, so procuring that stuff, getting them here, and that's the other thing I really love here in Ukraine is how fast postal is. There's a couple postal systems here, but hands down the best postal system is Nova Poshta. Nova Poshta is hands down the best thing ever. It was funny when I first got to experience it. I was amazed because it's very different. Like you don't have like a mailbox like we do in the US. People don't deliver. I mean, you can have a courier come to your place, but for me it's easier if I just go to the post office and pick up my items. So that was kind of like the interesting thing is like things get shipped here within days, 2 days. Language barrier wise, most of the times you really don't need to know Ukrainian to operate on these websites to use them. Obviously there's Google Translate. It is helpful to start understanding the language and reading because there are certain parts that are just referred to differently. And so it's hard for you to find that part if you don't know what it's called. That's been a bit of an issue, but I just asked my friends, hey, what's this part called? And then they help me out there. But then of course, people give you phone calls. That's very common after you order an item here. They'll give you a phone call confirming your order and letting you know when it's going to happen. I've yet to have a phone call where they spoke any English, but it's okay. Usually just tell them you're a foreigner, and then they'll talk a little slower, or they'll text you, and so you can translate it. But usually there's no big issues. No major delays. Sketchiness. You're thinking like, oh, everything's sketchy, all this stuff. Fun thing. So in Ukraine, basically, you can pay at the post office. I found this really interesting. You don't have to pay for the item online and then receive it and see that it's crap. So when you go to the post office in Ukraine, they will ask you, would you want to open the box? And so basically, it's a really good check to to be like, yes. If it's an expensive item, say yes, I want to open it. I don't trust this vendor. You can open it at the place, and you can both look inside. And maybe you see it's defective, it's not damaged or something, and you say, hey, look, you see? And they say, yeah, I see. And then return it, you don't need to pay for the item. That's really cool. I really like that. So that's one of the interesting features. I think there's a commission on most things. There might be like a 1%, 2% upcharge, a fee for them doing that. But overall, that can be really useful if you're not sure, if you don't have confidence. And in a way, that kind of improves the trust system here. So people are, like I said, I've yet to receive an item that I found defective or crap, or like I got scammed. So that's all good. So that was making Max Drone. Challenges in making Max Drone primarily was the servos, learning all that sort of stuff. But now I know it. Now I know it. I'm working on some other stuff. And that's pretty much going to be it for this video, talking about drones. There's a lot of stuff I can talk about. Like I said, I ended up talking way too much for my last one, and this one's already getting long. So the last thing I want to say is if you're watching me for the first time and you would like to help me, how can you help me? You can help me by getting a better sense of what I should be doing in Ukraine. And one of my current ideas that I think I should be doing is kind of helping building a bridge between Ukrainian groups and foreign funding. So at the end of this video, for donations, obviously donate to Mac. If you're one of Mac's regular donators, keep donating to him. He's a good man. He does good work. But if you want to help the Ukrainians, a Ukrainian organization, a couple of weeks ago I posted a video, a short video. It's up here, a day at the forge. That's what I primarily did before I started working on drones. I still go there. I still help them out. I still love those guys. Ramon works hard, but this war is dragging on, and it's becoming harder for Ukrainians to secure the funds they need inside domestically. They do fundraisers, they do lotteries to raise funds, and they've been having issues raising enough funds to keep the forge going. They make these guys. These are called SCOBA. They're just fairly large staples. The military uses these to build bunkers and trenches. We donated these to Mac. He can confirm that this is what we do. If you want to help a Ukrainian group, and you want to make sure your money goes a long way, please donate to the Forge. Here is their PayPal. Watch the video, like I said, if you want to see what it's like. Pretty much 350 of these, you can build a nice small bunker. They can fit 5 guys in them, and it's about 10 hryvnias, like a quarter. This costs them a quarter to make. They're not for profit. So if you do want to help out a Ukrainian organization, please go ahead, donate to them. You can follow them on Instagram. There's their link down here, and you can follow me on Instagram. I don't make many YouTube videos, one, because it's time intensive and I don't really see what I'm getting out of it, like on my side. But I do feel like I should try to keep at this and see where it goes. But I mostly post on Instagram if you want to see what it's like living in Ukraine, what I'm up to, what's going on, what I'm trying to help support. All right? So guys, if you stuck around the whole thing, thank you very much. Please do leave a like, comment below, tell me what you think. First time, trying to reach out like this. Most of the time I use this as kind of like a video log for friends and family back home, but I'm hoping that this can do better and more people can see what it's like here in Ukraine. All right, thank you guys.